There's nothing like being in the stands cheering on your favorite team. Game Time is your hack to unlocking amazing tickets in just a few taps. Plus, their Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets at the best price. Fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. Get the best deals on sports tickets. Download the Game Time app and create an account to start searching for tickets to upcoming games and events. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time.
No question about that.
Hello, Ed.
How's it going?
Yeah, good, thanks. On the show this week, we're going to look back at whatever that just was. We're recording
Absolute
10
rubbish is what it was.
Yeah.
Absolute rubbish.
Recording 10 minutes after the Villa game. I've chatted to Joe Devine from Tifo Football about the ins and outs of how they do things over at Tifo. It was a really interesting chat.
Looking forward to listening to that one.
Yeah, and we will... Oh, I don't even know how to say this. We'll preview a game on Wednesday night. I've got both of my hands on my head as I say this, and I'm rubbing my eyes against José Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur. Oh my giddy aunt. That is
Any
not a
chance we
game
can
I'm looking
appoint
forward to.
Poch before Wednesday? Just make it a bit fun.
Honestly, all right. Let's start with a thought experiment, Ed. For this show.
I love a thought experiment. Go on.
Has the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer experiment at Manchester United failed?
Not quite a thought experiment, is it?
No, it's not.
It's an actual experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. This is true. Oh God, it should have been a thought. For years, I've had it as a thought experiment, and it was wildly successful in my thought experiment. But it turns out real life is more complicated.
Yeah. Well, yes, probably it has failed. Yeah. I mean, they are briefing. So says everyone that the 3-year plan is still in place and everyone is behind Ole. But I think with each passing week, the results don't play out. More pressure builds, of course. And United are in the bottom half of the table now, just drawn against the Villa side that started the weekend in 16th. A Villa side, as we said last week, which has significant amounts of problems. And for a lot of that game today, United were just not very good. Got completely outpassed in the first half by this Villa side. And, and fair enough, in McGinn and Grealish, you've got two midfielders there who just walk into the United side. No problem at all. And which is just bizarre, isn't it? Team in 16th. But a bit more lively from United in the second half. But Villa were good value for that draw. Totally good value for that draw. And United depends who you believe. Infogol had the XG at 1.67, Understat at 1.85. Whatever way you look at it, that's not great. Again, conceded goals. So there's just so many negatives coming out of this game compared to, we felt quite upbeat in our first ever Friday pod last week, didn't we, after Astana, even though United lost? Reasonably upbeat because it was a team full of kids and Jesse Lingard. And they did all right despite losing. Now, this was the first team, 11 changes, all the main people back. I mean, obviously Pogba's still out. And there's just nothing there, just nothing in the tank at all.
Well, we sort of predicted that it was fairly likely to be a midfield of Fred, Pereira and Juan Mata. And I suggested that maybe Juan Mata might have an okay game, which is a sad level of optimism, isn't it? And I would say, actually, Juan Mata had, in an attacking sense, had an okay game. He brought his influence to bear a little bit, was kind of there when most of the good bits happened.
He was even making third-man runs at one point.
Yeah, I tell you what, Anthony Martial should be embarrassed at the extent to which Mata, when it was really early on in the game, and Mata, United were in possession and Villa were in their defensive block, and Mata was moving and Martial wasn't. And I was just thinking, I just don't understand it. Maybe there's stuff I don't know. I know I talked at length about this the other day. So my first note on because I kept a bunch of notes. My first note just says AWB looking very pressurized by the press multiple times very early in that game. Wan-Bissaka looked like he was really struggling to get the ball out beyond Grealish.
Yeah, well, so I mean, obviously, saying an obvious point, AWB is a better defender than an attacker, and he's just more comfortable in defensive situations than he is having to deploy the ball. That's not true of Lindelof and Maguire, of course, who are basically not very good defensively, but quite comfortable on the ball, you know. Steve Bruce with a decent first touch is Maguire. So, I'm being flippant, of course, but there's some truth to this, and United haven't defended particularly well in the last couple of Premier League fixtures. And in fact, today, given how many free kicks United appeared to give away in really good positions, they were fortunate that Jack Grealish's delivery was actually quite poor for most of the game. I mean, he scored an absolute beautiful worldie of a goal, and you'd expect him to do better from some of those set-piece situations. And he didn't put United under as much pressure as perhaps you might think he would have done. Otherwise, it could have been an even worse result.
Yeah, I mean, the Grealish goal. So United actually looked quite dangerous on the counter-attack very early on. James whacked on the afterburners for one, and nobody really could keep up with him, and he ended up having to cut it back when it would have been lovely if he could have slid one along, the 6-yard box. And then very soon after that came the Grealish wonder goal. And, he skinned Pereira, all ends up. And it was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant finish. But he didn't have a lot of pressure on him. Like, Wan-Bissaka wasn't part of the defence, wasn't part of trying to stop Grealish. He'd left him entirely to Pereira. Maybe that was the right thing to do. I'm actually not saying that as a criticism, because I think you'd have to know what the plan was in that situation to know whether that was what was meant to happen. But it certainly looked like Grealish had a lot of time on the ball, but boy did he use it. A Peaky blinder of a goal.
Yeah, lovely, and De Gea just watched it in. So
yeah, and then United just couldn't sustain any kind of possession for a solid 20 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, but just a really long period of time after the goal where they looked completely just beaten.
The ball just kept turning over. Fred, Pereira just really doing nothing in the central midfield area, and of course Pereira puts in an absolutely beautiful ball for Rashford's equaliser, although I suspect that's going down as an own goal, isn't it? But for United's equaliser, lovely ball, which we know he can do, but the all-round game was just horrible. Fred couldn't create any influence on the game at all. We've praised him in recent weeks of having more positive performances and actually starting to look like a player that might be somewhere near £52 million. No, he's really not. But, at least edging up. At least, maybe there's 2 digits in there. Pereira definitely isn't 2-digit player, is he?
Looking like a player as far as I thought you were going to go, looking like an actual professional footballer. I mean, he did one brilliant thing, Fred, which was this kind of really sick piece of skill on the right-hand flank, and to kind of beat a man. And that was the first time United had relieved pressure from the goal. And then he slid Martial in with a kind of angled through ball, and Martial had the shot from a kind of very wide angle. But again, this was the only way we created any space was with a moment of really high level individual skill. Nothing structured about it, nothing structural about it, just all about individuality and just the general lack of cohesion. I mean, having Fred and Pereira in the centre of midfield is a massive, massive issue, obviously. I mean, you mentioned Pogba being absent. He's been absent for a long time, of course, and McTominay being absent as well. It just leaves us in this dire situation. And I have to say, I know this is sort of the easiest stick to beat a manager with ever, but are we absolutely sure that he wouldn't have been better sticking one of those 2 kids in alongside Fred than Pereira? I mean, I know Pereira put that ball in, and that's a moment, the most significant moment in the first half from a United attacking perspective. But apart from that, wow, he's really poor.
He really is, and now he's had a third of a season to prove us otherwise. Prove the doubters otherwise, and prove that he is a player that is capable of performing in the Premier League. And I think we've got quite a lot of evidence now. I complained last week at least on Friday, that people are writing off Tahith Chong too early. He's not done anything to impress in his 192 minutes in the United team this season, and nor would many players over the course of effectively 2 games, many of them as a substitute. But Pereira's had a lot more than that. He's played most of the games for United now and been very poor. And at a minimum, he hasn't earned his place in the side right now, and it's not even going as far as we should dump him. And of course, all of this stems back, you said Pogba injured, McTominay injured, boo-hoo us, right? And there's no sympathy for Solskjaer here because every single time he gets the chance, he says, oh, no, it was my choice, happy with it. Probably, now he's towing the party line and saying 2 things which made me lols over in the build-up to this match. One first, he said, this is not the best bit, but, first he said, oh, we're probably not, going to do any business. We might be looking at some loans. And then he said, oh, Pogba's coming back. It's like a new signing. I mean, it's David Moyes levels of ridiculousness.
Yeah, because it's literally not like a new signing. That's the thing. In any way, it's nothing like a new signing. It's our midfield crawling its way back to being its kind of barely functional minimal level. It's absolutely crazy.
Do you know what's like a new signing, Paul?
What's that?
A new signing.
Yeah.
A midfielder.
Yeah.
We have seen one of those recently.
I mean, yes, we keep signing midfielders and it keeps going terribly wrong. But anyway, the fact that we've talked ad nauseum about this particular thing. There was a moment where Rashford tried to play the ball wide to Williams after about 26 minutes and just knocked it straight out of play. And it just completely summed up where United were at. Moments after that, there was a triangle on the left-hand side and Williams... instead of finding a United player with his bit of the triangle, just passed it straight to a Villa player. And it was just that kind of atmosphere. Lee Dixon pointed out that Juan Mata was just yelling at Fred and Pereira, just get me the ball. I need to get on the ball. And there was a moment where Dixon, I don't think he's a terrible pundit, not the world's best, most complex football analyst, said something along the lines of, all you have to do to stop United is you sit deep, you slow them down until they run out of patience and give the ball away. And he was just proved right time after time after time in the period of play that followed that. There was then...
To be fair, that's about the level of our analysis these games as well.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's absolutely accurate. And then... very lucky with an offside from a low cross from a corner that nearly caused the corner comes in, there's havoc caused in the box. I'm not sure they got a shot away from that, talking about XG numbers and XG being slightly misleading in terms of chance creation, because that was a very nearly a massive chance. And then we didn't play to the whistle for a ball that ended up in the back of the net and was ruled out for offside. It was all very dodgy, just didn't look safe or secure at all. No,
and then that's how Mings scores, not long after that. So, a bit later.
Half,
yeah. So, anyway, it's none of that looked very secure from United at the back, and none of it looked very, as you say, useful or productive going forward. When Juan Mata is frustrated, then something's going wrong. Martial not moving, He's come back from injury, not in the best form. Marcus Rashford he's scoring goals. I don't think he's going to get the one today, but at least he got in the right place for it, which he wasn't doing before. And that's a positive. Dan James had a better game today than he had against Sheffield United, I thought. At least he was involved a lot. Yeah.
I thought it was really good, but I didn't think he was that bad. He did 2 bad things against Sheffield United.
No, he didn't do many good things, is my point, really.
Well, except in the 7 minutes when he was instrumental to United being good.
No. As in, he did one good thing. One good thing. This is the difference between recollection and data. But anyway, we're talking about last week's game. I was trying to say
that's so snide. It's oh no, you're just wrong. You're just basing that on your pie-eyed opinion. You couldn't possibly have considered a broader picture.
No, well, exactly. I'm glad you. I'm glad you agree with me, Paul. So anyway, I was trying to say I thought he did okay today. You know,
Yeah, me too.
in the context
Obviously.
of not being all that okay anywhere across the pitch.
By the way, before we got it back to 1-1, there was another really dangerous moment where the ball was pinging around in the box from a free kick. Like, it just because Grealish's bad delivery sort of started in the second half, really. In the first half, put in a few decent ones. And I've just got a note here on 40 minutes that just says so bad. It's just we couldn't get the ball out. But then, actually, the goal comes from this thing that kind of crying out for this United side to do, which is press. Like, it was a transition and a turnover from high up the pitch. Mata, really, like, the fact that Mata was pressing and winning the ball back tells you something about what would have been on offer for us if we had a coherent attacking structure. So Mata wins the ball back, gets it to Rashford, slightly heavy first touch, and then Heaton knocks it out for a corner. And it was from that corner that the ball comes out to Pereira and he swings it in and we scored. So, like, it's transition. What a shocking idea that trying to force a transition high up the pitch is one of the most effective strategies this United side could possibly bring.
But it's just not been effectively deployed across the season, has it? So it's obviously a very effective tactic because a lot of chances come from this attempt to break down the opposition and score from transition. So, you know, like, in fact, all the world's top coaches and some that used to be top coaches play on this. Mourinho wants to score from transition from the low block, Klopp and Guardiola from the high block, you know, or the high press. And it's effectively the same thing. It's when your opposition is unstructured, you have the greatest chance of scoring, you know. And Solskjaer at one stage, and it feels like an age ago now, doesn't it, wanted the same thing for United, but he just cannot get that kind of consistency of performance, or he's given up. I'm not sure which one it is, but he cannot get them to consistently press all over the pitch and win back possession in dangerous areas.
And you know, the personnel thing is obviously a huge factor, but this does look like the worst case scenario of dodgy personnel being coached badly. That's what currently it looks like to inexpert eyes. At half-time, I wrote, it was just ridiculously lucky to be 1-1, both in terms of us not having created anything meaningful up until the goal, but also in terms of the fact that they didn't have any big chances in inverted commas, but they were a whisker away from a lot of big chances. And I thought it was one of the worst performances of the Ole era. And the real worry was that it came on the back of Sheffield United. It was like, same again, just absolutely the same again. Different causes, no Phil Jones or back three to blame this time, but just a complete collective failure, which I don't think the second half was a complete collective failure. It was much more, it's a lot more endeavour, a lot more purpose. You know, they got themselves in front and then switched off like idiots for the goal. But I think the tenor of the second half was very different from the tenor of the first half.
Sure, yeah. The output wasn't that much different. I mean, more shots for sure, not great quality shots, not from great positions. Didn't create tons and tons of XG. Obviously, this is like vagaries of the model, but Anthony Martial's will go down as 0.6 of the 1.67 XG that United created in this game, although the own goal will go down as 0, although Marcus Rashford's header will go down as quite high, I imagine. So, you know, maybe that all evens itself out. But an awful lot of sort of speculative shots after that. You're right, there was more like impetus going forward for sure. It just didn't result in loads of magical stuff. So
I mean, you look at the XG graph and like the first period of the game versus the second period of the game, and like it's massively better in the second half than it was in the first half. It just wasn't that good in the second half, right? That's the thing.
So United in ninth, actually, in the top half. I erred earlier.
We are top half of the league. Say we are top half of the league.
Really, really benefiting from the fact that Sheffield United have had a poor few games, you know, or at least not picking up as many points as they used to. Chelsea lost this weekend, of course, and Arsenal only drew. And I mean, I don't know why I'm trying to post-rationalise that there's some opportunity here. I mean, in the way that Tottenham are now fifth, just because they've won 2 games with Mourinho coming on board, it's not that much for United to get themselves back into a decent position. Win a few, beat Tottenham on Wednesday, and suddenly United are going to could be 5th or 6th, basically. Could be.
Yeah. Yes, you're right, Ed. It would be quite good if we beat Tottenham on Wednesday, but the evidence would suggest we're not going to. There's a moment where Martial put an absolutely beautiful through ball through to James on the wing, who put in a beautiful ball into the 6-yard box, and both Lingard and Rashford were in position to break forward to make the run once the ball went out to James. The fact that neither of them did was genuinely shocking. Our attacking movement, I would say, of all the things that are wrong with this United side at the moment, their movement in and around the box is the number one thing that's wrong. And the fact that Mason Greenwood didn't come on until, when was it?
Pretty late, 77, something like that, yeah.
Really late on. And the game was crying out for a bit of invention and movement in the box. And his substitutions, the Lingard for Mata one, I thought Mata was one of the few people that looked like he was going to make something happen.
But he can't go for more than 70 minutes, can he, Mata?
But surely he can once every 6 weeks when he plays once every 6 weeks. Then Williams and Shaw, that swap, what did he think was going to happen there? And then
Shaw's best contribution was getting a yellow card, basically.
Yeah. Straight swap then for Mason for Martial when we need a goal. Like, I know Martial had just chipped one over from 2 yards, but he also looked reasonably likely to do something. I thought it was really bad in-game management from Solskjaer. And I'm not sat here calling for his head, but I definitely understand why everyone that is.
Sure, yeah. I mean, look, there's a whole list of reasons why you'd want, and you can perfectly well rationalise that, which is results have been very poor for a very long time. United are mid-table and look like a mid-table side. There hasn't been any progression under this manager, and he's been in situ for almost a year now, 50 weeks. Yeah. So this isn't a short-term thing. He has backed and apparently supported the decision to let some players leave. We can argue whether they wanted to leave or the club forced them out. Either way, and he has not, when given the opportunity, said, I'm unhappy with this, right? So, and maybe he's just super positive, Ollie, and he doesn't feel like he has the gravitas or the situation with which he can complain to the owners about lack of spending and so on and so on. Now, I'm sure there's quite a lot of truth in that, but there's an awful lot of things you could list before you get to poor in-game management as negatives against Solskjaer, and it all kind of adds up to an assessment of Solskjaer which says maybe this guy just isn't good enough for the role. Maybe that's true. And I'd love to believe, because there's an awful lot of Solskjaer stands out there who, not that many. I mean, not as many as the Mourinho crowd, but there's quite a few people who say, look, he's got a 3-year plan. He knows what he's doing. We're taking the pain now. This is the Woodward line as well. And it's long-term benefit. Look at all these young players. And United had a very young side out again today, an incredibly young side out in midweek. And look at the progress that could be made. But it's always could be, maybe, should be. And the real question then becomes, is this manager getting enough out of this group of players? Is this group of players a 9th? Is it the 9th best squad in the Premier League? I mean, Arsenal a place above us, just sack the manager because they don't believe it's good enough, So long way of saying it's understandable. There's a hell of a lot of pressure and a lot of people will be questioning Ollie right now.
Yeah, and I think the people that kind of are in that sort of, like Arsenal fans have been about Emery, just rabid, waiting for the loss, for the kind of loss to happen that he gets sacked after, I think they're going to be really disappointed, because I don't think United are in the position that Arsenal were in 2 weeks ago, where, if they'd lost this game today, they would have sacked Solskjaer. It just doesn't feel like that to me. But hey, maybe that's not true. Maybe it is, 2 more bad results in a row, which we're about to get, because I think we're probably going to lose to Tottenham and City. It means it's going to be an awful lot of pressure on Solskjaer and people. Well, for sure, the furore to call for his head will be absolutely up in arms. I mean, I don't want to sound like bloody Gary Neville, but I do find it a bit exhausting how quick people are to scream blue murder that you got to get the manager out. But I don't think that culture's going anywhere until we get a manager who
until we get
good
results and get.
Yeah.
I mean, like if so, my position on this is if United did appoint Poch, and I don't think he's going to take a job up until the summer, they'd finally have got the managerial appointment right. Yeah, but, and there's a hell of a lot of buts. The structure at the club still isn't right. David Finnegan on Twitter says, is it possible to hold opposing views? I believe in what Ole is doing, except that it will take time to get the squad and the team playing to a consistently high level. But is Ole really the man to get us back and challenging? And I think that's perfectly fair point.
Exactly. I in fact, if you were to kind of outline my position on it, I think that would be almost exactly what it is, which is that I think this project is exactly what needs to happen. And it looks to me like he's not the man to do it because he does not seem to have the tactical nous or the gravitas. Too many of his decisions have been bad along the way where you think, if it does, it just doesn't seem like it would work. But yeah, that's basically exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, well, with that, anything more to say on the Villa game before we move on to listeners?
No, it was just an exhausting experience. It was fun to see Victor Lindelof score. It was great to think, oh, actually, all this kind of attacking impetus and improved vibe in the second half is going to be worth some. Oh, no, it's not. Because that was about the length of time that we were in front for. So, yeah, it was very disappointing when Ming scored.
Yes, it was. And a certain sense of inevitability about some of it. It was funny how Mings didn't really celebrate because everyone thought he was miles offside. Brandon Williams got to say he's got it wrong there. Young player, didn't follow the line.
There's a really funny thing in the replay when you see the slow motion replay from the side where every other defender's hand goes up and he sort of like tentatively puts his hand halfway up because he's like, oh no, I've made a, oh dear. That's what was going through his head.
Okay, well, look, that's the Villa game. I think with that, we'll this short message and then we'll get on to listener questions. Enjoying no question about that? If so, let others know about us. The best way to do that is leave us a review and a rating on iTunes and hit that subscribe button.
I have seen a lady who plays the saxophone. Give her a big applause!
Alrighty, so Nick, Man United youth, friend of the show, says, is Andres Pereira the worst hill anyone has had to die on?
It's a bad hill to die on. Are there people out there dying on the hill? I don't see a lot of fully committed, a clinical Andreas on Twitter.
I mean, no, that'd be a worse cult than Mourinho's, and his cult's still going reasonably strong. Mark Joseph Evans says you're going to have to do an emergency pod because Solskjaer will be gone in the morning, replaced by Poch by Tuesday. No, he won't be. I mean, I think that may be wishful thinking, self-actualization. This one, and he's. I think he's going to be here for a while. I'm pretty sure Poch will do the sensible thing and not take a job until the summer, and he's going to have two choices, at least two choices, both mega choices, and also United. No, I'm kidding. And then right now, if It depends how bad it gets. So right now, Woodward would take quite a lot of heat for booting Solskjaer out because he's said consistently in every press, on the record, off the record, and in front of investors that United are fully behind this manager and they've invested and they've got their analytics right and everything is in place for the club to be successful. So for him to fire the manager now would be a huge admission of error.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't agree more. And also, do twice a week podcast now, so we don't need to do emergency ones. We're ready to go at all times.
Lots and lots of questions about Pereira. Most of them not fit to print, let alone read out on the radio podcast.
I guess we know where we stand on Pereira, don't we?
Kylie Luke Keaton. Sorry, butchered your name there. How many central midfielders will be linked with us in January, and how many will the club say are too expensive? No, it's not expense that's the excuse. It's lack of availability and no one wants to sell in January.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be linked with everyone because it's the thing that people do is link people with United.
That's right. Talking of which, Charles Rothwell says, we're obviously hampered by injuries at the moment, but what on earth do we do in training? No excuse for such haphazard, dysfunctional displays, irrespective of who's playing. I mean, I don't know, because we complained about this an awful lot when Mourinho was manager. I'm not sure what the identity of this team is right now. And it felt during those first wonderful 14 games that I'm viewing through sepia tones at the moment.
There was only 3 good ones, though.
There's only 3 good ones, yeah. That United had an identity, high press, win the ball back in the final third, score in the transition, low block when we need to, break out. And we see that only fleetingly now. And it's hard to say what the identity of this team is. And the second piece on injuries, a lot of that's to do with the physical training. Klopp had that at Liverpool for his first 18 months, changed the training, and it doesn't happen anymore. And something has got to change here. And funnily enough, actually, when Faria, who's the periodization expert, left United started getting a rash of injuries because they changed their physical training regime up. And Ollie's come in with another one again.
And the truth is, there were 9 out of 11 players in that starting 11 who would start, I think. I mean, maybe you could say 8 because maybe Lindelof and Maguire would not start together in an ideal situation, but they have started together when everyone's available. So I think there's an argument to say that's 9 out of 11 first-team players. And obviously, 2 central midfielders is a fairly crucial area to have switched out. But first of all, Pogba and McTominay have been injured for such a long time, especially Pogba, that the fact that there's no pattern of play, especially given that whole first-team squad would have had the whole week with coaches to work on a pattern of play while everyone was in Astana after a game where they repeatedly demonstrated a lack of pattern of play and should have been really hammered on it all week long. So it's very, very, very... it speaks very poorly of what's going on behind the scenes, this performance, I thought.
Yeah, I fully agree. And look, as we've said on this pod before, it doesn't actually take that long to instill some kind of identity. It doesn't take that long to instill defensive solidity, because that's the easiest thing to coach. What's the hardest thing to coach is attacking patterns of play.
And it's interesting because we had sort of instilled a kind of defensive solidity, and now that since McTominay dropped dead, that's gone as well, which is very interesting in terms of where that was coming from.
Yeah, that's right. And Pereira's going to offer nothing there, and Fred doesn't offer much either. I mean, really, it's Lampard and Gerrard in midfield. That is.
Yeah, about the same level, roughly the same level.
Yeah, about that. Jack365 says, I know protecting youth players is important, but why is Pereira playing over Ghana? To that point. I mean, and we said, for this game, he's just played, almost... Did he play the full 90 in Kazakhstan? I think he might have done Ghana. I can't remember whether he came off or not. But he's a very young player. He's flown 5,000 miles. He's played, I think, the full game on a, was it a plastic pitch as well? Or no, it was
very
grass.
Cold, whatever
Very
happened.
cold. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of factors saying why you wouldn't play him. But in the coming weeks, it's a fair question because he's a very accomplished young player. It's also unfair to throw him in, but it might just have to be unfair.
And, I don't think United would have been worse off if we'd played Ghana against Sheffield United and today and played Pereira against Astana. Right. There's a thought experiment for you.
No, and it's a very fair one. It's a very fair one, yeah. And maybe that decision will come. And look, as Brandon Williams is now first choice above, the new noodle partner sponsor Luke Shaw and Ashley Young, maybe that's going to happen in midfield too.
So I think that'll do it for questions. And coming up after this quick break, my interview with Joe Devine from Tifo Football.
Enjoying No Question About That? If so, let others know about us. The best way to do that is leave us a review and a rating on iTunes and hit that subscribe button.
Oh, we are absolutely delighted to be joined on No Question About That by the first guest on our new podcast. I mean, ultimately it's the same podcast, but, we've got a new name. And it's someone who knows a lot about having a new name all of a sudden, and people's reaction to that. This is a voice that will be familiar to many listeners. My friend and a person who I worked out, this is now the 4th podcast that we've done together. I don't mean episodes of podcasts, I mean separate podcasts we've been on together. Is long overdue. Joe Devine from Tifo Football.
Hello.
Hello, how are you, Joe?
I'm well, thanks for such a lovely introduction. Although I think, being your first guest, you being so delighted about it, maybe there should be a question about that.
I get it.
Precisely because of the sort of one-liners like that.
So I thought it'd be nice to have Joe on the show. First of all, just because it is long overdue. We've talked about this for a long time, but I think we definitely have a lot of listeners in common in terms of our podcasts, but also I think people will be interested to hear a bit more about the story of Tifo and also just of what goes into the content that you guys make, which, in my opinion, a slightly biased opinion, because occasionally I write some of it, but it's like my favourite football stuff on YouTube. I think it's fair to say.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Paul.
You're welcome. So tell us a bit about the origins of the channel and what it's kind of grown into.
Well, the origins of Tifo, I suppose it originated in a different brand called Umaxit Football, which was set up originally by a chap called Neil Clerk. Neil is from South Africa. He lives in London now. And originally, Umaxit was a predictor game app where users could download the app and play the game. Essentially, you predicted the outcome of 5 or I think it might have been 6 Premier League fixtures of every weekend. If you got all of the outcomes right, so win, lose or draw, you would win a share in the £2,000 prize pot. And so depending on how many people won, you might end up winning a fiver, you might end up winning the whole £2,000. So the aim was to kind of be a bit more outlandish with your decisions. And Neil hired myself and Alex Stewart, who's still a part of Tifo now, we shared a job role, which was as the social media people for Umaxit, and all we really did was sort of schedule tweets to go out about, I don't know, general football. I guess it was more banter stuff then, and the app and things like that. Alex very quickly quit because he's a sucker and can't hold out when things get tough. He quit after, I don't know, maybe like 3 months, I'd say. And I was living at home at the time. My mum was unwell, so I had been living in London, moved home to look after her, and I just wasn't doing anything because there wasn't actually that much caring to be done on a regular basis. It was kind of more, bits and bobs throughout the day. So I just took the whole job when Alex left, and to be honest with you, Paul, I felt a bit bad about the lack of work that there was to do. Because anyone who's listening who was a social media manager more than a few years ago, before the idea of kind of seeding content elsewhere online and replying to comments and, being proactive about it, all it really was just scheduling tweets and Facebook posts, and it wasn't really a job, yet Neil was paying me to do a job. I felt a bit bad, and so I started to play around in my, not spare time, in the most of the day, play around with new ideas that I thought could be good. Tried some video content, some of which you were part of as well. Yeah. And we did, a few different things some of which worked better than others before finding the Tifo format. And I don't know how long you want me to keep talking for, because it all sounds quite boring to me.
I just I think it's kind of an interesting story, and I'm happy to listen to you talk about it for as long as you want. But so, how would you describe to people that aren't familiar? Because obviously, like some people listening will be, but there will be people who aren't familiar. How would you describe what Tifo Football has become now?
I don't know really. It's funny because it's to me it's just, obviously there's more work and there's more people, but it's essentially the same. As what it's always been, but the audience is big now. I think it's over 650,000 subscribers on YouTube. what was exactly your question? What is TIFO now?
Yeah, like how would you describe your output now? What do you do?
Okay, so we release essentially they're illustrated videos, so they are kind of a mixture, I suppose, between static infographics and animation, somewhere in the middle, because they're not really full scale animation. That would take far too long, and we look at different topics. We look at things like the tactics of a particular team, or we look at the story of how football has intersected with politics in different parts of the world, or we look at historical stories, the lives of people. One of the interesting things about this form of video is that it's actually quite easy to write stuff for it, because you could redo the story of David Beckham's life, for example, which would be completely useless to anyone in an article form. And if you pitched that to 442, an editor there, they would just laugh at you because you just go and read their Wikipedia page. But because you're making a kind of piece of art out of it, suddenly it becomes useful and people actually want to watch it. And it's a nice way of retelling some stories that maybe people do already know, or aspects of them that have fallen through the cracks in the past. And so we try to kind of take a fairly broad range of perspective on football generally, which is, to be honest, at times has been hard, because lots of people follow us for the tactics specifically, lots follow for the kind of geopolitical stuff, others for the history pieces. So just trying to kind of strike a balance between them has been difficult at times. But I would say the aim is that there is a generalized tifo tone. Do you think so when you watch them?
Yeah, of course. And like, not least of which, it's you. Your voiceover is a big part of what the tifo tone is. So I guess that's a good overview for people that don't know tifo. So for people that do, I'm going to ask a few slightly more specific questions, really, about your role in it, really. And my first question is, like, what's your favourite stuff to work on? What do you get the biggest kick out of being involved in?
I get the biggest kick out of the stuff which gets the fewest or smallest viewing figures on the channel, Paul. I've got to really rein it in, because I like stuff. Yeah, as I said, there's a balancing act all day. If it were left to me, which it is, so this isn't quite true, because I've managed to avoid my own pitfalls so far. But, in an ideal world, I would just spend the entire time trying to find out about, an incredibly niche story that's taken place in Qatar 40 years ago, which may sort of tangentially have led to the World Cup 4 decades later, and then talk about that and be really surprised when not as many people care as the number when you release a video about Manchester United's tactics.
So what are some of your personal favourites that have been on the channel?
Do you know what? I'm just gonna. People ask me this sometimes, and I can never remember any of them. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have a quick look, but while I'm doing that, I would say that my favourite person to work with the exception of you, obviously. Has been James Montague, who, again, I imagine some of your listeners will know, some of them might not as well. James Montague has been described on the front cover as one of his books of being football's sort of answer to Indiana Jones. He's a sort of world-trekking, very well-travelled, very experienced investigative journalist who... I think his most famous book is probably When Friday Comes, in which he kind of travels across the Middle East and writes about football in all of these different countries. He's obsessed with the idea of the underdog. So he was there, for example, in the when American Samoa won their first ever game of football. They were the team that lost 31-0. So he's got another book called 31-0. They lost 31-0 to Australia, and subsequently a documentary was made out of it, and I believe a feature film is on the way, directed by Taika Waititi, who made What We Do in the Shadows and directed Thor Ragnarok. That guy
and Jojo Rabbit.
So James was there when that happened, and that's probably a pretty good way of describing who he is. Also, he wrote a book called The Billionaires Club, which profiles some of football's wealthiest owners and some of the nefarious things they've done to get into those positions. So initially, when we first started working with James, we took a couple of chapters from the Billionaires Club, which had just been released at the time, and made videos from those chapters with him. So we did a whole one on Roman Abramovich, for example, and the story of how Roman Abramovich, went from being, a kind of lower middle class Jewish guy who, when he was in Russia, who when he was very, very young didn't have any money at all. There are sort of reports of him filling his little flat in Moscow with rubber ducks. And selling them as a rubber duck salesman, or I guess as some kind of toy salesman. Then there being a bit of a gap when the Soviet Union all properly fell apart, and obviously no one really knows what happened then. And then suddenly he bought Sibneft off the Russian state for £100 million, when I think its real value was $3 billion. And so most people don't know how, or I mean, no one really knows how he got the sort of seed capital to buy it in the first place. There's obviously speculation as to why it was being, all those government assets were being sold off so cheaply at the time. But yeah, so I think that might be one of my favourites. Also one of my most popular from the earlier days is charting people like Roman Abramovich, and not with a sort of political agenda at all, just as, just from the perspective that these people are very influential within the game that we all love watching. And I think it's only fair that people, fans and supporters, have the ability to learn as much as they can about the people who are, in such influential positions at their club. Roman Abramovich is one of the perfect examples of that, being, kind of the first modern super rich billionaire to be, to have a part in the Premier League. And his life is fascinating. So working with James on stories like that is probably what I find the most interesting, and the outcomes are probably my favourite videos.
Yeah, I think if I was in your position, that would be the same for me. And it's one of the things I love about Tifo, to be honest, is that you and I both know partly why, but you do make sure that is carved out, even if it isn't the most kind of commercially successful bit of your operation.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. This is the other thing with Tifo, is obviously, as I said, it's all about trying to find a balance, and for obvious reasons, a piece which, a 10-minute long video which explains the history of Roman Abramovich and maybe suggests that he doesn't buy Chelsea because he loves football, but he buys Chelsea to give himself an international platform and to make himself essentially famous, so that if he suddenly disappeared, that would be a problem. That's interesting to me, but I do understand why, Nike aren't knocking down the door saying, can we put our logo on this, please?
Absolutely. So I guess my next question is also one for the Tifo fans, which is how does a Tifo video get made? What's the kind of production process for that?
Well, people ask me about this so often, and I never answer fully.
Okay.
Partly because I don't want people ripping us off. But what I will do is
you've got 600,000 subscribers at this point. You're all right. Like I think you established
that's a kind of legacy fear,
leaders.
though, from like when we only had 50,000 subscribers, and then some other people started doing them. I was like, no, I must crush them. So essentially, the script comes first, as you know. So when let's take an example of something you've written recently. You did a history of Gary Lineker for the channel.
Yeah.
So
that was my idea too.
It was your idea, yeah. So the conversation either starts in that way, where you email me and say, hey, I've got this idea, and I say, do it, man, that's a great idea. Or I have an idea. Oh, go on.
Clarify for the listeners, I should email him. What I often do is write an improvised song in a WhatsApp voice message and send that instead.
It works every time, though, doesn't it?
I'm
very pitching elsewhere in the same format, because I think that would work.
I'm very professional.
So either, you send me a song and I say yes, or I have an idea and I think, well, Paul would be good to do that, or whoever it is would be good to do that, and I go and ask them, would you do this for me? And they say yes, hopefully. And then there's a week or so where they write the script, come back to us with it. It then goes through Seb Stafford-Bloor, who is our sub-editor, who also writes scripts for the channel as well. Then it comes back to me, at which point I do the voiceover and I send it out to one of our designers. So full-time on the staff, we've got Philippe Fenner, who's probably best known from our TIFO viewers because he's been around for the longest, and he's got a kind of scratchy, scrawly illustration style. So I reckon people would probably recognise his work pretty quickly. We've also got Craig Silcock, who's a friend of mine who's joined us more recently, and Henry Cook, who is full-time as of tomorrow, which is nice. So he's our third full-time designer. It will go to one of those, or maybe a freelancer or something if they're all busy. And those guys will then create a series of illustrations and assets that will make the eventual video. And then they'll pop them all together and send them back to me. And I'll go, yeah, that's good. And we'll put it out on the channel.
Brilliant. And then lots and lots of people will watch it, because that's
you hope so. Yeah.
It's been beautiful to watch it grow from, its beginnings to be something where it really does offer a sort of unique thing for football fans. It's been fun watching your podcast grow as well. That's the cover. I just really like the breadth of stuff, both the breadth and depth of stuff that gets covered on your show, and it's a high recommendation from me. So can you tell listeners a little bit about your podcast? And
yeah, I mean, the podcast has been through various different incarnations. It's funny, it's always sort of, up until recently, it's always been second on our list of things to do, because there are very few of us at TIFO, and we don't have very much time because we try to release as many videos as we possibly can within the space of a week. The podcast used to be something that would help support that, and also critically, it's the only way that we can directly communicate with our audience. Because unlike most YouTube channels who have, most of them are sort of done in a more of a vlog style, and it's two camera and someone speaking to you, and it's very personality driven, which is useful because it kind of gives the audience someone to connect with, and it gives a slightly more personal feel to things. On the TIFO channel, we've got the voiceover really and the tone of it, and that's about it. So the podcast is fun for us to be able to talk more directly to people and answer questions and stuff like that. But more recently, it's taken on more of a kind of important role. We're supported by The Athletic this season, and subsequently we've got a bunch of cool slack-jaw BDI football journalists coming down to the office to feature on our football podcast. So it makes life a little bit easier because I don't have to do all of the, not that I was doing it before, but I don't have to do all the kind of special research or anything, or really learn anything about what we're going to talk about. I treat it as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah. And
whenever someone criticizes me for not knowing what I'm talking about, I just use the excuse that, well, this is where I'm finding out. I'm not that's why we've invited this other person, so they can tell me. And you're just sort of listening in on it. But it's good fun, man. It's nice. And we try to, do a team at a time and spend a whole hour talking about, Tottenham or Aston Villa or United or whoever it is, and attempt to try and take the same kind of range that we do on the football on the YouTube channel. So there'll be some tactics stuff, there'll be kind of regular player chat, manager stuff, strategy, all the rest of it. But also we'll try and talk about the ownership and any key investors and any of the financial, I guess the financial side of the business. And try and, even if it is just profiling, even if nothing's going on, I think it's useful for people, I think, to touch base with that sort of stuff and have some sort of familiarity with what's going on at their football club, i.e. who owns it, how much money they have, where that money's being spent, and whether or not it's all entirely above board, So that's what we try and do. But we're all really busy, so sometimes we don't get it right.
You do a pretty good job. And talking of a good job, thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about it. And where can the people find your stuff, Joe?
They just type TIFO into Google, or you stand in the middle of a field and you shout, animated video about football, por favor, and a bearded man will come out with a platter of meats.
Oh, I mean, I'd gone with the vegan option myself, but apart from that, I like everything about it.
I'm a vegetarian as well.
I'm so confused. Yeah. All right, Brill. Thanks, Joe. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Great stuff. I haven't actually heard that interview yet, but I will look forward to listening to it when we publish.
I love talking to Joe, and that's why.
To be fair, you love talking, but, to Joe especially.
Wow.
Paul's offended.
He's
got
just going for me
face.
today. Like, it's just relentless. Yeah, you're negging me, aren't you? Much like the manager of our upcoming opposition. You're trying to get the best out of me by This is not good man management, Ed. I respond much better to the carrot than the stick. You should know this.
Arm around the shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. And Jose Mourinho, I would not do well in the Jose Mourinho team. Unlike Dele Alli, who is transformed for now, and until he offends the Great One. Honestly, the hilarious, transparent Jose Mourinho honeymoon period is beautiful to watch happen somewhere else. Just waiting. Unfortunately, we are right in the middle of the honeymoon period. So worth saying that they have conceded 6 goals in his 3 games. It's just that somehow they've also scored 10. There was a time when we scored a lot of goals under Mourinho too. It turned out not to be sustainable.
Yeah.
I suspect it's probably more sustainable at Tottenham with the personnel involved, but still.
Well, he's got a more talented squad, yeah. I'm not going to ascribe anything. I mean, they've got a bit of a bump, and a lot of the players had felt extremely suffocated by Poch and his methods, and couldn't understand, as we've talked about, why Pochettino's sort of attitude had changed. So, Mourinho's enjoying the bump. Let's not pretend suddenly Mourinho's coming and he is a man transformed and it's all him. So I'm not buying that. And I'm not buying the Mourinho, I'm humble, I've learnt from my past line. I'm just not buying that either. Sorry. 18 months down the line, when we're on episode 500 and something of this, because it will be now, we're doing twice a week. Play this back to me, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right when he's grumbling at Levy for not buying the midfielder he wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we used to get in trouble on this show for comparing Mourinho to Donald Trump, but he almost literally said, I'm so humble. You just don't understand how humble I am. He almost literally said it. He said, I've always been humble, you just didn't understand, which is almost precisely what Trump said anyway. Ali has had a massive uptick in form from playing much more advanced up the pitch.
Right.
The system does seem to be making more sense for their players. They got off to a disastrous start, of course, against Olympiacos in the Champions League, where he subbed Eric Dyer off after 28 minutes. And that annoyed me, to be honest, because I was like, where was the Mourinho substitutions of taking off players who were playing terribly after 28 minutes when he was at United? And the other thing that he said was he kind of admitted that he'd fallen out of love with football at United. So when we were going, it looks like he's completely fallen out of love with the game, and everyone was going, no, it's Pogba, he's a scum. I believe we were absolutely correct. That's what had happened.
Look, anyone, me with my level of training in psychoanalysis, could tell that West Ham formation was a desperate cry for help. This was a man who wanted out. He was like, please get me out of this, And it's why actually quite a few people are saying that Poch, he might have been officially sacked, but basically he's walked away with a £12.5 million resignation because he wanted out. He wanted out of Tottenham and he wanted to force the CEO's hand. And Mourinho tried that at United, and I think he's finally being honest there, because he definitely wasn't being when he was at United. And then look for this game, it's going to be a tough one, because he's got Son and Moussa Sissoko working really well in wide areas. Dele Alli, as you said, push up the pitch. He's not a Juan Mata number 10. He's a modern number 10.
He's a Mourinho number 10.
He's a very Mourinho number 10. He breaks ahead of the ball. He's a Frank Lampard, but younger, or could be, right? Dele Alli, and obviously he's got Harry Kane there, who even if he isn't at his peak shot level and peak goal scoring level, he's a very effective centre forward. So yeah, and the only thing you'd say about Spurs right now and their sort of main weaknesses is, one, Davinson Sanchez, who has found a place in the Mourinho side, and looked to wonderfully talented young player at Ajax, but has struggled a bit at Spurs, and their fullbacks. So Serge Aurier, you can get behind him all the time because he is very tactically and disciplined, and if Vertonghen plays at left back, he's pretty slow. Dan James could have some fun. In theory,
anything more predictable than Mourinho picking Vertonghen at fullback? He must have been just licking his chops going, got a built-in centre-back / fullback. This is the dream. He has basically gone to the side who he tried to buy, because I think it's fair to say he definitely tried to buy Alderweireld, Dyer, at least the two of them, and probably a lot more than that when he was at United.
And of course, the big loser in this Spurs side is Harry Winks, basically, who's been on a big uptick, trajectory of his career, got into the England side, looked like a very competent midfielder, but doesn't fit this formation of two sort of more physical, deeper line midfielders and then three ahead.
He started Winks in the first 2 games.
Yeah, but I don't think he's got much space in this team. So.
No, and it's the kind of the sort of interesting thing about it is he's playing this 4-2-3-1 where one of the midfielders is training with the defenders and the other midfielders training with the 4 up front, right. And so you've got these 2 5s basically, which is just kind of interesting, and I think it'll be more than enough. I think they're going to win comfortably. The one hope is that United do the thing where they turn it on for a big game, or the other thing that Mourinho sometimes does when he feels a little bit threatened and he just retrenches and just tries to completely kill the game, and they don't get away with one on the counter-attack. But I think even if they do that, they will get away with one on the counter-attack. And there's absolutely no reason that Mourinho's Tottenham should look at this United side as a team they have to park the bus against.
And as we've just said, I don't think that Spurs' strength. I think they can dominate the possession of the ball, and probably will dominate possession of the ball against United. Is McTominay back against Spurs? Because if he is, he's going straight in the team.
Straight in the team off an ankle nasty. Oh,
yeah.
A lot
of the thing with ankle nasties is that the actual physical repair is ready a long time before the kind of full peak fitness because of the turning, jumping, and so on and so on. We'll see. Desperately needed. Yeah.
And ultimately, I just think this game is going to be one to watch through the slats of your fingers. Obviously, it'll be dream fodder for the Mourinho obsessives who are convinced that José was the one, the truth, and the light.
And, hope this helps.
Yeah, they'll enjoy this a lot. And we will we are more patient than them. We will just wait them out because it's fine. It's going to look real shiny and nice for a few months. But
here's a question for you, Paul: who's going to score more goals in the coming week, Spurs or City?
Oh, against us?
Against us.
Oh, that's a good question. We'll come on to a full preview of City in our post Tottenham game post Tottenham podcast midweek. But I think City will score more goals against us but they've been in really patchy form. So who knows?
Their defense is really shoddy.
Yeah.
So
they can still score some goals. That KDB goal at the weekend's absolutely ridiculous. Although both Scholes and Rooney would have scored that from about 20 yards further out. And did.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, I don't want to talk. Shame we have to talk about City in the coming week because I've been studiously ignoring the City-Liverpool thing or just the Liverpool thing. It's,
I'm fully...
Trip to Moon already booked, just mentally at least, and
I've
just not
fully
there at all.
Accepted it. I don't know why any United fan would be holding out any hope that this is not going to be what happens. This is what's happening this season. Finally, after... more than 30 years of hearing it. If you say every year for 30 years, this year will be our year, eventually, by the law of averages, there'll be a year which is your year. And I think this is indeed their year.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be the 30th anniversary in May, won't it?
Right. So there you go. So we're not going to get to 30 years of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Will we get through... Will he still be the manager on Wednesday? Yeah, of course he will. what is the score going to be in that game, Ed? Even you must surely... Well, no, I don't want to speak too soon. I can imagine you at this point saying, well, we might somehow get a draw.
You're trying to frame this so I can't possibly say that.
No. Listen, you do you. You do you.
Yeah, no, I look, there's almost no scenario I can create in which United come out on top in this game, other than we defend with the very low block and try and break. That's the only tactic that works. I just can't see. I can't even do the rationalization that you came up with, which is that Tottenham part the bus. Why would you? Aston Villa just passed us off the park, right?
Although
Spurs is much, much, much stronger through midfield.
Many of the time we've sat here on the other end of this, looking at Mourinho, being like, there was no need to park the bus in this scenario. So maybe Tottenham fans will get that, but I feel like it's just a bit early. If this game had come like 2 more months in, then maybe we would have got 6 at the back from Mourinho. But I don't think he believes his Tottenham squad need to sit 6 at the back against us. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Tottenham win. I actually do think there is a route to a United victory in the form of a much improved performance almost out of nowhere, because we have seen that a few times. It is a thing that happens occasionally. The front three click, and the midfield doesn't look atrocious, and the defense don't make any stupid mistakes. I just don't think that's very likely. Yeah.
But Son, Ali, Sissoko all breaking from midfield with Nobeli and Dyer holding to protect. Why you'd even need both of them, honestly. I mean, I suppose Mourinho definitely would to protect, in the transition, as we said. But those players breaking ahead of the ball with Fred and Pereira trying to defend it. I mean, come on.
Honestly.
No, the Spurs are going to win. Maybe we'll get one. I don't know. I'm going to call it 2-1 to Spurs.
Yeah, all right. I'm going 2-0 Spurs. But I do predict that, no question about that, we'll be back.
Oh, yes. Definitely. Twice a week.
Yeah.
Have we mentioned that to anyone yet?
I don't know if we've mentioned twice a week. And also the Calypso's not coming back. Okay, bye. No, but seriously, folks, thank you very much for listening and sticking with us. And a genuine, slightly, I'm not actually being tongue-in-cheek here. For those of you who really don't like change, then I'm sorry about the change. It's necessary for us to take this forward and grow. But I sympathise with the people who are like, no, I like things to stay the same, please, because we do live in a complicated, messed up world, and it's amazing what people take as security. But don't worry, this show will be with you long enough that you'll be annoyed when we change this theme tune in 10 more years' time.
Yeah. And a quick word before we leave. I mean, we promised to cover the women's team more, which we haven't really done. But United women lost at West Ham this weekend. So, second defeat in the last 5 games. It's by no means are the wheels coming off the bus there. A 5th place in the table. I think it's very reasonable to assume that United can attack that sort of top 4-ish. It's, and I think that would be a very good result for the season. But, a rare defeat for Casey Stoney's team.
Yeah, and the case to make Casey Stoney the men's team manager rolls on.
Rolls on, yeah. Best manager at the club, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
No, I mean, we are in a position where the women's manager is the best manager at the club and the men's manager is the best striker at the club. It's a problem.
Oh, harsh.
No, I just mean as an out-and-out striker.
Harsh. And Jess Sigworth is pretty good, so no. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's it from us, is it?
Absolutely. Patreon backers, stay tuned as we break down the first half of our shortlist for games of the decade on the backers content in the last few weeks. We've been went through player of the decade shortlist, and we went through goal of the decade, and we're going to kind of bring the results of that to the main show. But if you want to hear the deliberations and the behind the scenes chat, head over to patreon.com/NQATpod.
Woohoo!
Otherwise, we'll see you Friday.
Okay, bye now. And before we go, just a quick word about our Patreon at patreon.com/NQATpod. If you really like the show, back us there from $1 and up, and you can access some really cool rewards like t-shirts, artwork, and mugs.
There's no question about that.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.